SwitchBot just released their new automated roller shades, and they are the most customizable option I've ever seen. Not only can these be any size, but you might be able to use your own existing shades with this. I'm gonna give you my story and why I think SwitchBot has become so good at designing products that fit every home that in a few ways, some of you will really struggle with this. You know, don't do this at home, kids. I'll tell you that story and more of what you need to know before you buy SwitchBot's Roller Shades. Let's give her. Hello Automators, thanks for tuning in again. I'm Brian from Automate Your Life, and I'm here to save you time and money on your journey to live smarter. So if a product's not gonna fit your life or your home, I'm not gonna tell you that it is. But let's start with some of the basics, so when I tell you what went really well and what didn't, we're all clear. SwitchBot's Roller Shades connect through Bluetooth into either your smartphone or into a hub from SwitchBot. With a hub, the shades have an unimaginable number of ways to be controlled and automated. With Bluetooth, you just use the app control, which is actually a very nice interface with a neat looking main control page. They have a rolling motor in that with an expected lifetime of 50,000 movements, which would give you about 68 years if you were moving these 2 times a day. The motor sounds pretty good. I don't have any concerns about its reliability, as I've used lots of SwitchBot battery powered motors in the past, and they are pros at this. Now SwitchBot has an onboard battery right here that should last you up to 8 months if you're moving these up and down about once a day. But they also sell this $30 solar panel that should keep things charged indefinitely. What's funny is the window that I have stuck one of these solar panels on doesn't get much direct sunlight, and yet it is charging a few percent up every day, despite me using that shade quite a bit. One other benefit of having this is really important. This acts as a light level sensor, which gives you a lot more automations based on the light outdoors. Something else interesting power-wise, this connects directly in to your shades. And what this is a little physical controller. Now, this controller can move your shades up and down, but at the end of that is a USB-C power port. So you can actually charge through a single cable and have a remote. I want you to hear these. Here's in what's called standard mode. I'd say that's a little louder than some of the most quiet motors out there today, but not bad. But this is in what's called quiet drift mode. Now that's pretty quiet. It's not gonna wake you up in the middle of the night. And I have measured a number of units in terms of how much noise they put out. That's quieter than very expensive units that I've tested before. And you can only do this through SwitchBot's app. If your plan is to move them with Apple Home or Amazon, you can't do this. That keeps things pretty quiet when you're waking up in the morning, and in combination with the solar panel, you could decide based on the schedule or based on light levels outdoors when you want to raise or lower your shades. And that's a big benefit versus many other shades out there today, because you won't have this light option and you won't have the option to raise them that quietly. Now SwitchBot includes a physical wall remote, but that ends up looking a little messy to me. I would rather use things like SwitchBot's universal remote, and I also like their little Bluetooth remotes. Those are entirely wireless, and you can place them where it's going to be more convenient and natural for you to control these. From a physical standpoint, most of the materials are really good. I've been really impressed with this fabric never getting dirty. I'll give you some more details in the install portion of today's video, but I couldn't get it dirty, which is impressive. Now, it is fairly thin, so you'd think that you're gonna see sunlight through it. Nope, full blackout, full UV protection, and an insulating material. So a lot of benefits to this fabric. Maybe the biggest benefit of this material is that you can replace it. So if you have roller shades in your home today, there's a couple of requirements to look at, but you could actually use those with the motor here. But pretty much everything else on here is shiny and silver. And because the customization is so complete, meaning you can basically fit any window with this, you end up with these little lines here and there. So for people who are really picky, that aesthetic might bug you a little bit. Still, in the end, I think the trade-off is worth it, because what we have here are extendable, trimmable, and even interchangeable fabric on this for that couple of lines. Now, most good solutions for smart blinds and shades are going to require a hub of some sort to make them very reliable. And that's what we have here. It is an extra cost, but with that hub comes the ability to connect to apps like Apple Home, Amazon, Google, Samsung SmartThings, and the more complex hubs like Home Assistant and Homey. And all of these options open up so many smarter ways for you to control your shades. Things like this automation in Homey that I've developed for my own home are powerful for saving energy. And there are few options out there today that give compatibility like SwitchBot does. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's talk about what these cost. Pricing for SwitchBot's roller shades ranges from $199 to $309 US. Now, pricing is based on two things: the size of your window frame and whether or not you'd like a solar panel to keep the battery charged. The solar panel is an extra $30, and everything else is just that sizing. Just to give you an idea of what something like this can cost, I would say that the Lutron Serena shades that I put in my home were about 5 times the cost on average. Now, when we start looking at some of the budget options, Ikea is a big name in this space. The pricing comes about $50 less in the same size. Now, Ikea adds about $10 or $15 for every couple of inches that you add to the width. You're not necessarily getting all the options and components that you're getting from SwitchBot here, nor are you getting the option to cut that fabric down. Now, it's kind of the same thing with competitors like Zemismart or Tuya. They do have some nice options, but by the time you add in fabric or you get the whole thing together with all the components you're gonna need, you're gonna be within about 50 bucks. Now, the only way you can really save versus this is DIYing everything. What I'm trying to tell you is that this is a pretty premium option for a reasonable price. And of course, we have coupon codes down below that can help you save a little more. SwitchBot has given us a huge exclusive discount code for you guys until May 31st. Now, you have to buy these on SwitchBot's web store, but there's a code for 45% off in the description below. But let's move to what happened during install that I think you need to know. I had already installed Lutron Serena shades in 90% of my home. That happened about 6 months ago, so I wasn't willing to tear all of that out and put these up. I do have 2 small windows in the basement here, and that's where I was planning to put these. So I got a couple of XL sized shades, and I went to work on the initial install on my first window. Now, I don't know about you guys, but if I'm installing something semi-permanent in my home, I'm gonna be a little cautious. I'm gonna measure twice and drill once, so to speak. So I'm a little uncertain as I got into this. That's how it's gonna look in the end. Okay. The box has a lot in it. There's a lot of pieces and it appears a little daunting at first, but there is a good paper guide that comes in the box, tells you everything you're getting, and it tells you to get it into the app first. That, of course, is the SwitchBot app, and the connection process is holding a little button on the front and then hitting the add device button. Because it's using Bluetooth, my phone and the app finds it in seconds and it's ready for install. When you look online, the sizes have a fabric size and a roller shade size. Those are slightly different. You'll want to think about that before you purchase a specific size. If you're on the outside of your window frame, you'll basically extend the whole physical unit 5 centimeters total past the edge. If you're installing on the inside of your window frame, you'll cut about 1 centimeter off the sides. That'll give you really good coverage, but obviously on the inside, you're gonna be a little skinnier than the window frame, and so you can have a little bit of light shine through there. You should also know that you're probably going to need a friend with you to get these installed, and if you're doing a really wide window like the one behind me, I would suggest 2 friends for one specific moment. Now the first step is to basically take the whole main unit apart. You take the covers off, you unscrew a couple of screws there, and then you pull the whole fabric roll off. I got a little nervous about how dirty the fabric would get, but even when I had my really filthy hands when I was installing this in my garage, it never got dirty, and it was actually really smart by SwitchBot to have the outer side of the fabric facing out too. So even if you nick the surface, you're not ruining the side you're looking at. After I took all those things out, I had to then take 4 screws out of the back. Now what you need to know there is you don't take them all the way out. There was a little discrepancy in one of the guides. I took them all the way out, and it meant this little brace inside of the unit fell out, and it took me 10 minutes to get that back in. Then you basically resize the main unit and tighten up those screws again. If you're going inside the window frame, you need at least a 9 centimeter depth for everything to come flush with the front of your window frame. So I measured that, plus taking that 1 centimeter off the side. So far so good, right? But then I had to resize what's called the bottom bar. You prep the bottom bar to be your guide for where the mounting brackets will end up on your wall. So you resize this bottom bar to the same size as the main unit you just worked with. And then you put on these mounting stickers. And then you're gonna put those up against your surface, and you're gonna mark your points where you will eventually drill. But it was in this moment, I felt really uneasy about what I was doing. Okay. Yeah. The mounting stickers didn't go perfectly over the little red stickers on the bottom bar. I wasn't even sure if they were at a perfect 90-degree angle. And then when I got up to my window, the bottom bar was a little uneven. When it's really wide, it's pretty easy to get some little bends in it. And when you're putting that up against your wall, this is probably where you're gonna need some friends. I also ended up changing the size of that bottom bar by accident a number of times through this process. SwitchBot became so good at making this fit everyone's home that this part of the process was overcomplicated. I should be able to measure everything off of the main unit, or even with just a tape measure. I don't even think they needed this whole part of the process for most people. So I just took this off the clips, and you can see this ridge goes all the way along, and that's actually what the mounting bracket is connecting into. So no, you don't have to put it exactly here where SwitchBot tells you. You can actually move it a bit. Now, obviously there's gonna be some margins here. You don't wanna go too far, but you have a lot of space here. So like here, as I put it back up, I'm not even looking. It's just on there. We're good. So it was at this point that I basically backed out of installing the first one on my window over there. I think I will eventually get both of them on the windows down here in our basement, but that experience had me wanting to make this video for you instead of one where I showed you it working there. Let me give you a couple of other tips when you go to install these, because there was a few other things I ran into. After you get everything to the right size and you get your brackets mounted, you're told to cut the fabric. There's an automated process for that, and it is an incredibly ingenious method. I've never seen anything like it before. Basically, it spins the unit with this little cutting tool on it, and you continue to cut down by rotating a screwdriver. From there, you do have to cut one of the internal rolls. So it's not a super easy process that way, but everything else is really automated, and that is a wild feature that they've made there. But once I was to the point where the main unit was able to go on the brackets, I tried to follow their guide to put on this bottom bar here. Now, what's weird is you have to use a stapler. They give you this in the box, and then you're attaching this plastic strap. It's one of those plastic straps that they use to put on the outside of packages to kind of hold things together. It feels really weird, and honestly, I almost threw the thing out before I looked at the manual. It's really annoying if you're trying to do it on the roll, on the floor. I instead told the app that I was done with the install process, and I mounted the main unit on the brackets. Then I used the app's calibration process to bring the fabric down, pause it where it would be easy to work with, and then I sat there and stapled it. Now, when you're doing that stapling, my advice would be to staple a little bit on the lower half of that strap. Easier to slide the bottom bar on with that. It's just that little bit of customization that's causing these extra steps. That's what drove the installation here. And now I don't have the materials to get both units on my windows here. So it's a little bit of a tragedy. I'm gonna have to go and buy another if I wanna do this. Let's go through what you get from an automation standpoint once you've got them up. Once you have your shades installed, you can go into each shade just by simply tapping on it, and then you can move the device very quickly like that, and then you have some quick actions you can take there. If you'd like to, you can hit the more button, and look, we can see it moving, and if we'd like to adjust where it's headed, we can do it like that. Now, it's moving in standard mode, but if we would like it to move a little bit quieter, we can turn on quiet drift mode or quiet drift control, and then we can adjust things. Now, anything I do on this page, because I have that active, it means that that's how the unit will move. So you're gonna hear it in the background a lot less right now. I can set more and more customized actions. You can see up to 8. So whatever you kind of want to set the shades to as quick actions, you can set them and add them that way. If you'd like to take an action and then maybe delay it, you can turn on that delay and you can set the mode there. There is, of course, schedules. You can hit to add new ones. You can select your time. You can choose to repeat on which days you'd like to repeat that, and then the action that you'd like to take. With any action inside of an automation, you can also set the movement mode. Let's say you don't like that automation. Well, you can uncheck it that way, or you can delete a few of those. So if you don't like certain ones, you can get rid of them. At the top of the whole page, you can see that we're cloud connected, which means we're connected to one of SwitchBot's hubs. We can see that we're Bluetooth connected. That's the middle icon there. So I'm within range to Bluetooth connect, and I can see the battery status. Now I can get more details, more settings inside of here. There's not a lot you're gonna wanna do in here, except maybe create a group. So if you'd like both of your shades to move together, you can create a quick group. If you'd like, you can pair to a SwitchBot remote. These are the wireless ones. They use Bluetooth. You can pair them directly to this unit. So this is separate from the wired one that is in there, and you just set the 2 actions that you'd like to take with those remotes. You have NFC tags that you can use, and if you'd like to review the third-party services that you can connect to, they're right there. All this other stuff, kind of self-explanatory, but you might want to check on your firmware and your battery levels through there. The way SwitchBot has built their system is actually at this point genius. There are basically 3 levels of automation. If you just get the roller shades and you use the app to control them, you're using Bluetooth. Now the neat thing about SwitchBot is you can get their little wireless remotes and control them with that. You can use this universal remote too. Now if you get the solar panel, you could still automate based on the light levels outdoors. And for those of you who would like to use your phone, but in an automated way, you can get little NFC tags from SwitchBot. So actually a lot of automation options. The second option is that you get a SwitchBot hub. With those, you can connect to Amazon, Google, Siri shortcuts, SmartThings, and if this then that today. I'm sure there'll be more options later, but those connections are what's called a cloud connection. That means if the internet ever goes out in your home or one of those services is having a little trouble, you might not be able to control your shades from those other apps. So it gives you all the options you want, but we can go another level. That third option is to use one of SwitchBot's Matter-Ready hubs. I will link those down below, but if you're buying a new hub, it's Matter Ready today. Now the Matter Bridge feature allows you to bring these into Apple Home, Homey, Akara, and Home Assistant using Matter. You can also go into all those other apps I mentioned in method 2 using Matter as well. The reason you want to do that instead is it becomes local control, which means if the internet goes down, you can still have control of your shades from those apps. It'll depend a little bit on that app and how you're trying to control them, but that is a big benefit. It also means that generally things happen faster. Let me show you the options you get in SwitchBot's app for automation. So I'm in the automation tab. I'm going to create a new one. If I go to add condition, sadly, the roller shades do not have any condition. You can't set them to a certain percentage and then start another routine, but you can send them to any location and in the mode. So those are your options that you have here inside of SwitchBot's app. It's a little different than what you get in other apps. Inside of Apple HomeKit, we can actually set a trigger. So when that shade opens or closes, and of course you can set conditions for time and people, you can run an automation. For example, you could be tying your shades together from other systems if you're just gonna get one or two here from SwitchBot. So here now I've set a trigger from another type of shades. And if I go into my shades from SwitchBot, you can see that I can set it at any percentage open or closed. So that means as an action, I can tie things together here. And when we're connecting through the cloud connections, here's Amazon, here's Samsung SmartThings, you're gonna find slightly different options for automating with this. Feel free to ask in the comments below what your favorite app can do, but for example, Amazon can take an action. It cannot actually have the shade start an automation, whereas Samsung SmartThings can start an automation based on the exact shade level, and it can then move the shades to a specific spot. And here's Homey through Matter. I think this is a really great example for what you could potentially do with Matter. So if the shades are closed, opened, or the position has changed, you can even test the position, and then you can set the position and close, open, or toggle open or close. So lots of good options there. And with that testing of the position, you could pretty much make any routine based on the percentage open. So what's my final word? It's been an interesting review, right? Well, SwitchBot has truly made a customizable solution. On launch, the documentation isn't perfect. It is still really well done, and many of you will be able to sort through it with what you watched here today and the guides you have. Otherwise, if you like SwitchBot's products at all, if you've used their curtain, their blind tilt controller, or things like their universal remote or hubs, then this is a no-brainer when you're looking to retrofit some of your own shades. It's gonna last, and it has a lot of extras that you saw in today's video. It's got bigger batteries, extra controllers, a good app with lots of detailed settings, and all those automation options are there for you. And that's on top of a good quality device. So I like it a lot, and I wish the install had gone better for me initially. I'm sure it will go better for you. You can check out all the links below for this. And of course, if you're really wondering about whether you want to get into SwitchBot, check out the playlist on screen, which is all of our reviews on their products. They make really unique stuff, and nowadays they're even making robots. So check that out. Otherwise, thanks for watching today, and of course, live smart.